Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good afternoon, Nigeria, and welcome to this Rubbin Minds Ramadan special, proudly powered by Knorr. We are in a sacred season, a time of fasting, reflection, and renewed faith from the first sighting of the moon to the moments of suhoor and iftar. Ramadan is not just about abstaining from food, but about self-discipline, kindness, spiritual growth. Today, we'll talk about the essence of this holy month, the physical and spiritual nourishment it brings, and the lessons we carry beyond Ramadan. We have amazing guests joining us, so stay with us for an insightful conversation. This episode of Rubbin Minds is powered by Knorr. Beyond just nourishing meals, Knorr has brought the true essence of Ramadan to life through its Share Good Ramadan campaign, an initiative dedicated to strengthening community bonds through acts of kindness and shared meals. As they have done in the past, Knorr ensured that fasting Muslims felt nourished both physically and spiritually during this holy month, celebrating the beauty of giving and togetherness. Through their 30 Days of Good challenge, they encourage simple yet meaningful acts of kindness, from checking in on a friend to sharing fruits with a neighbor, reminding us that even the smallest gestures can make a big difference during Ramadan. The importance of Ramadan. Every year, millions of Muslims around the world observe Ramadan. But beyond the fasting and rituals, what does the month truly mean? For some, it's a time of spiritual renewal. For others, it's a test of discipline and self-control. And for many, it's an opportunity to reflect, reset, and reconnect with faith, family, and personal values. But with the world moving at such a fast pace, do we sometimes lose sight of the deeper essence of Ramadan? Is it just about abstaining from food and drink? Or is there a deeper lesson that we should carry beyond the 30 days? Ramadan. I'm really looking forward to having this very important conversation with our guest today. Joining me in the studio is the founder of the HSM Tribe, which is a community for women, and we have with us Khadija Bello. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you for having me, Isabella, and Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak and Eid al-Fitr, right?
Yes, Eid al-Fitr, so
Yeah.
happy Eid al-Fitr.
So we're just talking about Ramadan, and for a lot of people, they just see it as, oh, it's that holy month, Muslims fast. But there's more to Ramadan than just fasting, abstaining from food. Like we said in the intro, it's about the small gestures, it's about community, family, faith, values, self-discipline, self-control. So what's the deeper significance for you with Ramadan?
Yes, I mean, we've just come out of the holy month of Ramadan, but I think that this is a very resonant conversation. And to understand the significance of the month, you really need to go back to why does it matter? Why is it something that we mark as Muslims? Ramadan is the month in which the Holy Quran was revealed by Allah to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Ramadan is the month in which we abstain from food and drink from sun up to sunset. But you know, beyond food and drink, Ramadan is really an opportunity for us to reflect. It's an opportunity for gratitude and empathy, for you to really feel and sort of put yourself in the shoes of people who are not privileged or have as much as we do. So, you know, sort of abstaining teaches you what it is that some other people go through as a course of their normal lives. So I'd say yes, Ramadan is very important for us. It's a month where we strive to be on our best behavior, but ultimately carry it beyond that month into the rest of the year.
And personally, what are the lessons you've taken from this holy month of Ramadan and your communities about women? What are some of those lessons that you've shared with these Muslimas, with these Muslim women?
Yes. So personally, for me, over the years, Ramadan has been a bit of a roller coaster. But it's ultimately about striving. It's really about striving to grow and to improve. For me, it teaches me the value of time. It's 30 days, but it's 30 days where you sort of come correct and want to get the most out of this limited time period that you have. So for me, in terms of personal lessons and takeaways, especially from this last Ramadan, it's really just valuing that time that you have. It's easy to get carried away sometimes. I mean, you start off strong, but ultimately life gets in the way. You get into that mid-lull by half of the month. And then when you enter the last 10 days, everyone can sort of relate with that urge, that urgency to now want to fall back on the right track. So I say yes, for me, ultimately, it's just about time and understanding just how valuable it is, especially in the world that we find ourselves today.
And, you know, a lot of people think it's just that abstaining from food and water, but there's more. Something you said in your earlier answer is you come correct. Are there other things that you abstain from during that period beyond the food and the water?
Yeah, so you don't eat or drink, that's the basic, but it's actually a combination. You're fasting with all of your senses. So it's not just what goes into your mouth, but it's what you say, what you do, what you see, what you hear. So you're not backbiting, you're not, you know, putting yourselves in situations that you shouldn't be. It's what you touch. You're abstaining from sexual relations as well, apart from food and drink from sun up to sundown. Ultimately, you are trying to leave behind bad habits and embrace better ones. It's also an opportunity to really improve on charity, in your faith, on all of the other pillars of Islam, in a way that really helps you to get the most out of that month.
And what are some challenges, especially women?
Yes.
What are some challenges they face during this holy month? You said earlier on that when you get to that halfway mark, the lull sets in and you just have to push through. So what are the challenges and how have you been able to overcome them?
I mean, speaking not just from a personal perspective, but also things that I've observed in the community around me, I think that social norms have a very key role to play in terms of challenges. Women are traditionally the caretakers, the homemakers. They're the ones who are preparing the meals that you eat pre-dawn, and you know, at sunset again when you're breaking your fast. It's, if not intentional, it's possible to really spend most of Ramadan in the kitchen, as opposed to, you know, also partaking in acts of ibadah, acts of worship that the month is all about. And to be fair, there are blessings in doing all of that service, in cooking for the family, in trying to ensure that people, you know, feeding needy Muslims, etc. But ultimately, people, women especially, should also be able to partake in the blessings and the goodness of that month. So I think that's why we're always advocating for better family systems, better dynamics, where there are stronger support systems to enable women take a backseat sometimes and also, you know, make the most of that month. One other thing to also bear in mind is guilt. I think that it's more of like a personal state of mind, obviously, but that's one challenge that people face. You start off really strong, you have all your goals set for Ramadan and what you want to achieve, but ultimately, consistency, it takes a lot to be consistent and to maintain that momentum in terms of how you've started. So some people may burn out, or some people may find themselves at a point where they are no longer able to sustain and could fall into that trap of, well, okay, I'm in the slump now, and that slump sort of dictates the rest of their Ramadan. But it's being able to rise above that guilt. And I mean, you're in the month of mercy, where literally we believe that shaitan and evil forces are completely at bay in the month, and you know, God's mercy is, it abounds. So that's one way to really find yourself and sort of pull yourself when you get into that slump or that guilt. It's ultimately just, it's never over until it's
not to
over.
Give up.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
don't
keep
give up
going.
And just keep going.
You mentioned acts of ibadah. Can you tell us more about these acts that are practiced during the month of Ramadan, and I'm sure even beyond the month of Ramadan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you have the basic pillars of Islam, you know, your faith, Salah, that's observing your obligatory prayers, both obligatory and voluntary. You find people wanting to observe more voluntary prayers during the month, from the additional prayers that you make around the individual prayer times to the prayer that we have in the evening, the Taraweeh prayers at the masjids and mosques. You give acts of charity. There's a very huge blessing in feeding other fasting Muslims, whether or not they can afford it. Just saying, being nice, you know, to other people, as I said, avoiding things like backbiting, gossip, etc. So all of this sort of like builds together, including, you know, your acts of worship, your charity, your fasting. When you all put that together, it's kind of like the, I don't know, ultimate roadmap for the ideal Ramadan. Yeah.
You mentioned charity like 2 or 3 times.
Yes,
so
it's really important.
Why is charity, that's zakat and sadaqah, such a core part of Ramadan?
It is. So they're different. They're both charity, but they're different. Zakat is obligatory for every Muslim who can afford it. And sadaqah is ongoing charity, things you do every day, whether it's buying food for someone or paying a transport fare for a passenger or even smiling. Smiling is a very huge act of charity, whereas zakat is it's like a tax on your wealth, but it is only for Muslims who can afford it above a particular threshold, especially, and then within that you have Zakat al-Fitri, which we have just given after Ramadan and before we said the Eid prayers this morning. It's usually given as grain, food, to allow needy Muslims be able to celebrate and participate in the celebrations around Eid. So ultimately, charity is really important because it's your way of showing gratitude again to Allah for the wealth that He has blessed you with, and ultimately for that wealth to be replenished. So it's a way of cleansing wealth. It's a way of showing compassion to others who do not have, and it's a way of really seeking God's blessings.
So no matter how much you have, there's something you can do.
There's something you can do. If you do not have anything, smile. It does a lot for someone who's having a bad day or who's thinking, and they just see you beaming at them. It uplifts them, even if it's for a minute. That's something you can do, even if you don't have anything.
And how can this impact be felt beyond the holy month, these acts of charity?
Yeah, it's so it's 2 ways, and it's beyond acts of charity. All of the good deeds, all of the things, the values that are sort of felt in the month of Ramadan, they could be carried forward either personally in terms of sustained impact. It's either from a personal perspective or from a communal perspective. As individuals, if you're able to take a good habit, even if it's one, and maintain it after Ramadan, that consistency that we spoke about earlier, it builds you, you're growing, there's progress, there's a stronger spiritual connection between you and your Lord. So from a personal perspective, you could do that. From a communal perspective, when we talk about the generosity and you know, charity, as you said, that Muslim women, both Muslim women and men, Muslims generally are prone to do more of in Ramadan. We've had situations where funding for whole mosques or community centers or other social impact programs have been raised all in the month of Ramadan. So that act of giving and generosity could ultimately help to establish programs whose social impacts are felt long, way beyond the month and for generations to come. That's why it's very important.
And personally, you know, you said even if it's one habit that you maintain and you carry on beyond Ramadan, are there any spiritual habits you have started building during this month that you plan to maintain and to sustain beyond this month?
Wow, Isabella, thanks for putting me on this spot. Well, I mean, obviously, that's a very personal thing individually, but it could vary. For some people, I mean, when we enter into the month, it's with that mindset of you already have the goals and things that you want to achieve, kind of like how we have New Year resolutions.
Yes.
For us, Ramadan is that period of reset where you're like, this is what I want to improve on, this is what I want to be able to do, and this is what I want to carry forward. So for me, it's been changing over the years as I've developed, you know, as an individual. At a point, it was being able to say, say my prayers on time. At a point, it was being able to give charity and sustain that. At a point, it was being able to sort of improve on my family relationships. Again, Ramadan is a time where family ties are strengthened. You're breaking your fast together. You're calling people and checking on them. So there isn't one thing, and I'm obviously not going to share my specific
or maybe your community
habit for this year, but it has
maybe something
always,
for your community.
Yeah, exactly. It has always been how do we really reclaim ourselves as women, as Muslims, and sort of outside of the noise, outside of the expectations, societal expectations, how do you find what really matters to you? I mean, it's a personal relationship, you and God. You're the one who knows where you're lacking and where you need to build on. So I think being honest about that, first of all, and being self-aware and knowing where you need to improve on, and then just deciding that even if it's one thing I'm going to pick, I'm going to try and maintain that going forward. So yes, there's no one size fits all. It really depends on where you are on your faith journey, and just being determined to progress on that.
And what would you say it's something you've heard that maybe it's a myth that surrounds the holy month of Ramadan that you'd like to clear? Because not so many people get to hear these conversations and they just think, oh, it's just about fasting, sun up to sundown. So are there any myths or misconceptions around the holy month that you'd like to clear up?
As basic as it sounds, I think there are people who believe that you don't eat at all. Like,
oh, wow.
You don't eat, you don't fast. It's like, yeah, just dry all the way from the beginning of the month to, obviously, with what we've said, we know that's not true. Islam is a religion of ease. It is a religion of ease. Things are meant to be easy for you to do in terms of fulfilling your acts of worship. So we do eat sahur. We do not fast on a dry stomach through 30 days. You do eat sahur in the morning, and then you break your fast in the evening by eating iftar. Yeah, really, that's one misconception. There's another, I wouldn't say it's a misconception. It's more like taking advantage of, as I said, people are on their best behavior during Ramadan. So you don't want to shout, you don't want to like be aggressive, etc. Please don't antagonize people who are fasting. Be considerate and sort of like show empathy towards their situation, because yeah, most people, especially when they're fasting, ultimately aren't going to want to like be in confrontations or anything. So yeah, it's also just showing that tolerance for Muslims who are fasting in that month.
And any final words in 30 seconds or less?
Yeah, one thing I want to share is that, as you know, wonderful as the month is, as beautiful as the celebrations that we're facing today, there are Muslims who are in other parts of the world who are probably not able to celebrate Eid as much as we are. So I think that one thing that is really important and why this month is crucial is for us to be able to understand what they are going through. I mean, think about Muslims in war-torn areas, you know, who are fasting without even eating because they do not have the food. So it would be a call for Muslims themselves to be more geared towards developing the Ummah and praying for the Ummah where they cannot do anything about it. And then for non-Muslims to also join us in that month and sort of like showing increased tolerance on both sides, Muslims amongst Muslims, Muslims to non-Muslims, and non-Muslims to Muslims, for a better world.
Thank you so much. And once again, happy Eid al-Fitr. Khadija Bello, founder of the HSM Tribe.
Thank you
Tribe
for having
women,
me, Isabella.
Muslim
Thank you very
women.
much.
Thank you for being our guest.
Yeah.
We'll now go on a quick break. Please do not go anywhere. The show continues shortly. Ramadan is often described as a time for reflection, renewal, and spiritual growth, but one of its most powerful lessons is the importance of forgiveness, both seeking it and granting it, whether it's within families, friendships, or even society at large. Letting go of past hurts can be one of the hardest but most necessary steps in personal and collective healing. We've all been in situations where we struggle to forgive or where we hope someone will forgive us. But how do you truly let go of resentment? Is reconciliation always possible? Or are there cases where it's best to move on without closure? How does Ramadan encourage us to take that step? Forgiveness isn't just about others. It's also about finding peace within yourself. Ramadan provides the perfect moment to reflect on grudges we've been holding on to and the relationships that may need mending. This conversation will explore the emotional, spiritual, and even psychological aspects of forgiveness and why it's such a crucial part of this holy month. Joining me for a very important conversation is a politician, Ibrahim Obanikoro. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much, my sister.
So I'd say happy Eid al-Fitr.
Thank you. Eid Mubarak to you as well.
Eid Mubarak. What does Islam say about forgiveness, and why is it so emphasized during the holy month of Ramadan?
I'm not a scholar, but as your regular, typical Muslim that walks the streets and roams the road of, the world, it is part of the principles of Islam. One of the pillars of Islam is Sawm, which is fasting. And one of the major things that fasting is about forgiveness. Because you yourself as a person, you are fasting and seeking for God's forgiveness to forgive you for the sins that you have committed knowingly, unknowingly, and at times the ones that you're about to commit that you don't know. So if you are asking God for forgiveness, onus also lies that you forgive those that have crossed your path, whether knowingly, deliberately, or what have you. So it's a very crucial part of Ramadan, since you are reflecting, you're spiritual, and you're trying to, go by the ways of the Holy Quran. Don't forget, Ramadan is the 9th month of the Quranic calendar, and it's a month where the Quran was revealed to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is said that Quran is the constitution that binds Muslims. So if Ramadan is about forgiveness, so that means you are binded by our constitution to forgive and possibly forget.
And why is this forgiveness or being a forgiving person, especially during the month of Ramadan, so important for spiritual and personal growth?
At times when you hold on to grudges or malice or people's mannerisms or behaviors towards you, it can hinder your thought process, and it can also hinder you as a person. And then instead of you to think progressively or think, in a manner at which you would make more progress, you're more into about how do you get back to this person that has offended you? How do you offend the person back, or how do you make it, a balanced equation? And by doing that, you lose sight of a lot of things. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mental health. It hinders progress, even spiritually. So it's important to forgive.
And negates the purpose of the fast in the first place.
Exactly. So
during this month, or maybe in the past, has there been an issue where you've had to forgive someone or seek forgiveness from someone that has really changed your perspective on how you see forgiveness?
I'm quick to, like I said, part of the constitution binding me as a Muslim is observe, fasting. And sometimes I don't wait till Ramadan to fast. I fast at times Mondays and Thursdays, because it also says in the constitution that those are two good days in the month, or in the week rather, to fast. So it's part of me to just quickly apologize if I feel like I've offended you. I usually am quick to apologize. I don't wait for it to bottle up in you or for a long time. I'm quick to apologize if I know that I have offended you and I'm in the wrong. I will apologize. That's my person, naturally. And with my religion, it makes me do it faster.
But for some people, it's difficult to forgive, or even if they forgive, to forget.
Forget,
and
yes.
How are they able to use this month of consecration to let go of the wrongs? Because some wrongs really hurt very deeply.
I agree that we're human beings, and we all handle things, differently. And it's difficult to tell somebody this is the way and that's the only way, especially if they're adults that make decisions by themselves and for themselves. So, but for a Muslim, I would advise that you pick up the Quran and try to, if you can, read the Arabic writings, pick up the English translation and try and read up on the Quran. Pick up on chapter 3, chapter 4, or chapters that have to do with forgiveness. And you find peace in reading the Holy Quran. You find solemn, and it will come easier for you to let go. Even if you can't forget, at least you look away and just, move on, because it will help you spiritually.
And do you think forgiveness can happen without an apology or reconciliation?
I think that would depend on the offense, or the act of wrong. That would determine if one can forgive. And at times, they say time heals all wounds. So some wounds, you find out that over the course of time, you forget that. That happens to me a lot, I've seen somebody that they've avoided me because they felt that they have wronged me. And then when I see them, long time. And I apologize, and they now apologize that they're sorry for what happened. Oh, that happened? I don't even remember. We've moved past that, And there are some that I also don't forget, I might have forgiven you, but I'll still remember that you are capable of doing this simply because you've done it before. But I will not hold it against you or use it to judge you before the next time. I can guide myself, but I will not say because you've offended me before in this manner, I will deny you the opportunity that you have with me again.
And you said forgiveness comes easy to you,
Yes.
It's easy for you to apologize, but there are some people that might not even want to grant you that audience and they've wronged you, or you might not even have known. Maybe someone comes to tell you. How do you go about seeking their forgiveness?
Like I said, I think pray about it. If you know that you've offended somebody and that person is the type that holds on to, your ways or characters or manners, if you know that you've offended them, pray about it, pick up on your Quran, and then give them time. Like they say, time heals all wounds. So give them time and, try to apologize again. And because I know whoever it is you've offended, also over time would, outgrow it. And if you are instrumental, they might feel the need to, welcome you back. So just give it time, apologize again, and whoever it is also, we're all human beings. Nobody's above mistake. So forgiving is to forgive is to be forgiven.
And earlier on in the show, we talked about how Ramadan is a time for family.
Yes.
How can broken ties within families be mended during this period of fasting, the holy month?
So for me, Ramadan, I'm home a lot during the Ramadan. I come home to, break my fast. And at times, I go to one or two people that are dear to me to break my fast. And in the course of going around, you meet other people, and in that mood of spiritual mode of Ramadan, everybody seems to be at ease, and you find it very almost homely and welcoming everywhere you go during that period of time. So I believe it's able and has the capacity to bring families together. And if you see yourselves continuously for the next 30 days, I am sure
you're praying, you're breaking.
I'm sure that whatever offense or whatever annoyance or anger in you over the course of 30 days, you would also, you're a human being, you would definitely calm your nerves and forgive whoever it is that has offended you.
And how can we sustain this forgiving spirit beyond the holy month of Ramadan?
You see, that's the essence of Ramadan. See, Ramadan is a period of reflection where we reflect on our ways and we go to God and seek for forgiveness, seek for favors, and ask for His protection for yourself, your wife, that father, mother, parents, family, everybody around you, including your nation. And if you are doing that for 30 days, the goal is the aim of Ramadan is to try and keep you or sustain you in that mode where you're continuously at your best behavior, you're continuously spiritual, you're praying, you're giving alms, because part of Ramadan is to give alms, which is zakat, you give out zakat, you have to be extremely giving, because they say, when you give, you also receive in return. So Ramadan is supposed to keep you all year round, but unfortunately, we're human beings, it's almost humanly impossible to remain in that mode for a whole year. So once you're out of it, Ramadan comes back again to remind you that, you're supposed to be in this state of mode. And that is why some of us, at times, we pray Mondays and Thursdays during the week, because we believe those 2 days are holy days that heavens are open and prayers are answered. So we fast on those days. It also keeps you in that, spiritual mode. So that's the essence of Ramadan, to keep you in a spiritual mode, and hope that you remain in that mode for the next cycle to come.
Now, I've been listening very carefully, and you said, praying, reading the Quran,
yes,
giving it time. But there are still some times where you encounter a person and they wouldn't forgive you after you've done all these things, and you want to be forgiven, especially during this holy month. So what do you do then when the forgiveness seems impossible and is not forthcoming?
See, now, what we also have to understand as human beings is that the ultimate forgiveness lies in the hands of the Almighty Allah, which is God. And in a situation where you have attempted to apologize to somebody, in a situation where you have attempted to seek forgiveness and they have continuously denied you, leave it to Allah. At least in the eyes of the Almighty, you have been forgiven. It's now left for that person and God to judge. So once you've apologized 1, 2, 3, and a few other times, and you've been denied, leave it to God. It's no longer in your hands.
And when you reflect on times that you've forgiven people, how does that make your fasting go? How does it help you spiritually?
When I reflect on times that people that I feel that they've offended me and I've forgiven them, and I'm now chummy with them, it makes me happy. It makes life easier for me, because then I can easily move on and see you and be free, as opposed to when I see you, I'm locking up, or I'm trying to make things uneasy for you. At the same time, I'm making things uneasy for myself. So I don't appreciate or like those kind of situations. So I'm quick to forgive. So I'm always happy. That's why I always say it. I don't think anybody has, that has done something to me that I have not forgiven. I will still approach you, I'll still greet you, I'll still play with you, but at times, I won't forget, because they say twice beaten, once beaten, twice shy. So, but like I said, I always give the benefit of the doubt at all times. At all times, I will give benefit of the doubt.
Thank you so much for sharing of your experience during this holy month.
Thank you for calling me as well. And part of the mode, that's why I said, let me come and share my Islamic experience with the viewers of Channel Television.
Thank you very much. Ibrahim Obanikoro, politician, who has joined us on this segment here on Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sister.
you.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too. We'll now go on a quick break, but this special Ramadan edition of Rubbin Minds continues after the break. Welcome back to Rubbin Minds. Now, throughout our conversation today, we've looked at the holy month of Ramadan and how it's a time for prayer, a time from abstinence from food and water, but also a time for family, where family bonds are strengthened, where forgiveness comes through, and also how to balance work with abstinence and how to bring the family together. That's what we'll be looking at in this next segment. Joining me for this very important conversation is a member of the August Affirmations Foundation, Aisha Adio. Welcome to Rubbin Minds.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
And also joining me is the Senior Brand Manager, Risori, Abdul Hakim Ogundipe.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you both.
Thank you
And
very much.
happy Eid al-Fitr, Eid Mubarak.
Thank you very much. Eid Mubarak.
So we'll go straight into the conversation. We know that Ramadan is a time of spirituality, but the fact is, life doesn't stop. Life keeps lifing. So you have to abstain from food and water, sexual relations, and still go about balancing all your work responsibilities, family responsibilities. How do you personally find the balance? Because it can be a lot. I'll start with you, Aisha.
Okay, thank you very much. So one good thing is that religion is faith, right? Your life is faith. So if you go by your work normally, it's an act of worship already. You smile at someone, it's an act of worship already. So balancing might be difficult depending on your job. People work, they are market women, they are this, they are that. And what you can do is just have the intention to do good. Like, you may not be able to read your Quran like you should. You may not be able to do other acts of ibadah, but the intentionality that comes with everything you do at your workspace. Are you smiling? Are you remembering to say your adhkar? Just the little things that brings everything together in faith and religion and your work.
And Abdul Hakim, what about you? How have you been able to balance your different responsibilities?
I think I would really piggyback on what Aisha has said. I think it's a very good thing to just have the, the spirituality, the connection to to God in the meantime, and then just keep saying your adhkar, the things you're meant to say during the fasting period, and that's what makes it altogether interesting. And even though it gets very, very laborious, you can just keep it together that way.
Earlier on the show, there was this point around how some Muslims might feel guilty that they're not doing everything they're meant to do. How do you move past that guilt to ensure that you're still able to fast, you're still able to carry out acts of ibadah, and you don't give up? Because a lot of young people can feel like they're not doing enough.
Yeah. The guilt is real. The guilt is real. Like, you feel like, so is work more important than my faith? Meanwhile, that is the reason we are all on this earth, for the sake of worship, right? So what you should know is that you actually feel guilty is to let you know how strong your faith is, because there are people who do not feel guilty about doing anything. They just fast. Some don't even pray their 5 daily prayer. So that you feel guilty, you should be happy about that, right? Then there is the next step where intention matters. God is merciful. Like, His mercy is widespread. Allah is so merciful that just this little act, again, I go back to little act, anything you do is accepted. And the fact, if you feel guilty, just always go back to the fact that you have a merciful Lord, the Lord that gives you reward for smiling, gives you reward for eating your leg on a stone. Why would you think He's going to take it out on you? You understand that you have responsibilities, that you're making money to take care of your family. It's a responsibility, and you should be proud of yourself for that. So I think Muslim men and women should, as much as possible, right, the youth should be happy that they're in this state, and they should be happy that they're Muslim first and foremost. They are feeling guilty, and they should always remember that their Lord is merciful. Yeah.
Abdul Hakim, earlier in the conversation, our guests were speaking about how the responsibility, especially for caring for the home, cooking in the morning and in the evening, falls on the women, and they can be very tired. What ways can the work be more evenly distributed, and the men stepping up to help, so that the women too can also pray, they can also do acts of ibadah and have that time of spiritual refreshing?
It's a very beautiful question, and I'm happy I get the chance to even speak to this. So I feel it's a more cultural thing. It's more traditional here in Nigeria to have the belief that women are the ones who are responsible for things like this. The Quran says that Rijalu qawwamuna 'ala nisa. Men are the ones that are supposed to take care of women on the one hand. And then even from prophetic traditions, the Prophet ﷺ was always, taking care of the homestead. So you'd see him, clean, he would wash after himself, he would do things like this. So expectedly, as a man, you're supposed to, take care of some of these things. However, there's also the beauty of it such that Islam has made it such that the women get the reward for staying up all through the night, just by, taking care of their family, providing the meals for them, so the guilt we were speaking about earlier, you don't have to feel it as much because, in many parts of the Quran, Allah says He is Shakirun Halim is the most grateful. You know, imagine your Lord being grateful to you for you doing, you know, your own good deeds. And then is Halim is the most enduring, you know. So, yeah, I don't think, I just believe men should also try and get much more involved if given the prophetic tradition. But then also women should just know and rest easy that no matter what it is they're doing, their reward is with their Lord and it's going to be multiplied in manifold.
Aisha, I see you nodding. Would you like to
Oh
add
my
to
God,
that?
I would really love to, because when I thought the question was going to be directed, and I'm like, I'm going to get a backlash for this, because there is, it's like you said, it's cultural. I mean, if we go to even Islamic lectures, you're going to get the women take care of your home, take care of your husband, take care of this and that. But there's never the part where they tell you that it is not even compulsory for a woman to go and cook. It is not compulsory for a woman to do certain things that culturally has been placed on us. These things are more cultural. It is then very important that we as Muslim women, we try to understand our deen by ourselves. That your afar in your local mosque said something, how true is it? What is your right as a woman, as a Muslim woman? You should pray. And like I said, your husband, like, they should check the culture. They should look at the life of the prophet, how he lived with his wives. Like, when you look at this life, when you look at the life he lived with his wives, you would be wondering, so where do we get all of this that we hear, where they tell you that as a woman, as a woman, as a woman. So we should always, there's, in fact, before feminism came into view, before women started fighting for their rights, if you go back to look at the religion of Islam, the way it is, not the way it has been transmitted by your local affairs, with bias and cultural bias and all of that, you would see that the religion is perfect. We just need to understand it very well. Yeah.
Abdul Hakim, you know, earlier on the show, we talked about forgiveness, we talked about spirituality, charity, and all these great things that are practiced during the month of Ramadan. But how can this be sustained, that it's not just a once-in-a-year thing, but it's now a lifestyle that happens all throughout the year?
All right, interesting and very beautiful. You know, I'm pleased with these questions. First off, on forgiveness, the topic of forgiveness is, you know, yeah, and if you would excuse me, Allah says in the Quran, He says, وَقُلْ تُسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينَ. Tell your people to seek forgiveness, and by seeking forgiveness, your Lord will send down bounties from the heavens, and He will increase you in your wealth, and He will increase you in your children. So it's simple. If you want good things from God, just seek forgiveness. You know what I mean? So if the instruction is there and you are asked to heighten it during the month of Ramadan, it's just because the gates are opened in that period. But it's something that has to be statutory, right? So it's something that people need to take as a as a daily thing, as something that they're always doing, you know what I mean? So even though even though the period changes, the instruction does not change. So I believe it's something that we all need to get used to. We all need to get in the spirit of doing. I mean, Allah make it easy for the Muslims, I mean.
And Aisha, what are some habits that can be imbibed throughout the year, or some of the instructions that come for the month of Ramadan that can be sustained?
So again, forgiveness, asking God for forgiveness, and then the act of giving. So we giving during the month of Ramadan, I think it is one of the most profound things I've seen, because just thinking of your neighbor and like, okay, so take this to them and all of that, the joy on their faces. And I think we should learn to always give regularly, because it's so beautiful. Like today, August of Emissions, we had to reach out to people, family. The economy is very tight, very hard. And just the little amount you give them, your 5K, your provision, your foodstuff, they appreciate it so much. So giving as much as we can. It doesn't have to be anything big. It doesn't. I'm not rich yet, though. I can't start giving out. If it is your 5K, if it is your 2K, if it's, oh, just take this bag of water to them, just give them this fruit. It's beautiful, and it should be sustained. Every single time you can, you should, to make other person happy, to give them, to put food on their table. Oh my goodness, in this economy, yes, we should. Yeah.
So, Abdul Hakim, when I asked the question around sustaining it beyond the month of Ramadan, you spoke about forgiveness, and she has spoken about forgiveness and giving, are there any other lifestyles that can be sustained or things that can be done?
Oh, definitely, definitely. You know, okay, I like to derive from the Quran. In chapter 16, verse 90, Allah gives us 3 commandments and 3 interdictions. We're commanded to do good, al-ihsan, wa ita al-qurba. We are meant, we're enjoined to give charity to people that are around us. And then Allah says, in Allah yamru bil adli, and justice. Yes, He says we should act justly to the people around us. So whether they're believers, they're non-believers, we need to act justly to everybody around us. And He says, wayenha, and we are interdicted from 3 things. Al-fawahish, that's every act of indecency. Al-munkar, things that are prohibited within the society. Wal-bagi, and oppression, anything that has to deal with oppression. So these are the things that should enshroud every Muslim's life, right? So giving, being charitable, smiling at your neighbor, you know, being very, very good to people, whether they're believers or not. Those are the laws that Allah has guided us with. So I just believe that leaving Ramadan, having studied the Quran as much this month, we need to take all of the lessons therein and apply them all through. Lastly, is to talk about studying the Quran. We need to try as much as possible to study the Quran as, you know, leaving the month of Ramadan into all the other months. And may Allah make it easy for the Muslims. Ameen.
Aisha, when we think about Ramadan, we think about families coming together to pray together, to break together. But how can this be something that is sustained beyond that period? Because that's a time where, you know, issues are being discussed, healing comes forth, families are spending more time together. I'm sure there's some children that wish Ramadan is every month, or some wives or some husbands that wish Ramadan is every month, because that's the only time they truly have, you know, family time.
Yeah, I think it can be sustained. Everything has to do with being intentional, because there is a reason there is just 1 month Ramadan every year. It is a way to bring us back, to rejuvenate our heart and all of that. And families will sustain this a month or 2 and all of that. So my belief is that when we create a system, it's nothing of, oh, it can happen naturally. It has to be intentional. Oh, I liked what we did this Ramadan. Can we do the Monday and Thursday fast consistently now? So on Monday, we do this that we do during Ramadan. We try to keep it up. Then there is also where you, whatever you like, a tradition you like in Ramadan, try and keep it up. It's intentional. There is no two-way about it. You just have to be intentional. We have to be intentional about our daily lives, what we do, where we go to, and all of that. So keeping it up is intentional. So I hope that during Ramadan, people asked Allah, because it was a prayer point for me where I say, Ya muqallibal qulub thabit qalbi ala dinik. Oh, you change of heart, keep my heart firm on your religion, because we humans, we are going to do things that we would normally not do. Because, I mean, today you're on Islamic jurisdiction, music is sometimes out of the way. You're on Instagram, Ashaka is in your background. I mean, what would you do about it? You know the lyrics offered and all of that. There's also the people you hang out with and all of that. These are things that happen without you being, it just happens. So we pray about it, then we try to be intentional. Let your prayer be followed with action, majorly. Yeah.
Abdul Hakim?
Yes, I believe it's pretty much correct. Speaking to the fact that we need to be much more intentional with family, because Allah is very, very, very particular about family. The Prophet ﷺ says, "La tadkhulul jannah qatilul arham." He would not enter paradise whoever cuts the ties or severs the ties of kinship or severs the ties of family. So family is very, very important. It's a beautiful time, you know, to spend with your family. And I just believe we have to be very, very intentional, and then, you know, also race ourselves in doing interesting things. With my family, we race against each other reciting the Quran. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Abdul Hakim Ogundipe and Aisha Adio, for being our guest on Rubbin Minds today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. As we wrap up this Rubbin Minds Ramadan special, one thing is clear: Ramadan is more than just fasting. It's about faith, community, and the joy of giving. And this year, Noor took it a step further, ensuring that the essence of Ramadan was truly felt at the heart of their Share the Good Ramadan campaign. was the Noor Ramadan Good Bus, a symbol of wellness and generosity that traveled across Lagos, Ibadan, Ilorin, visiting 34 mosques and community hubs to share nourishing meals with fasting Muslims. If you were in any of these cities, did you get to see the Ramadan Good Bus in action? Beyond that, Noor also launched a dedicated recipe website to help families create wholesome meals that nourish both body and spirit. And that's all we can take on today's special episode, our Ramadan special on Rubbin Minds. My name is Isabella Adediji. Once again, a happy Eid al-Fitr and Eid Mubarak to our Muslim faithfuls. Goodbye.